In DNS, we have forward lookup zones and reverse lookup zones. Then within those, we have different zone types. But the forward lookup zone resolves names to IP addresses. So that's going to contain the record PC1 equals 10.1.1.5. So forward is from name to IP address. You can see here, whenever you go to DNS, there is always this forward lookup zone folder that you can create different zone types under. And we'll look at those zone types in just a moment. But the forward lookup, just know name to IP. Then we have a reverse lookup zone as a zone type as well. The reverse lookup zone resolves an IP address to a name. So it just goes the opposite direction. Like 10.1.1.5 equals PC1. Just goes the other direction. All reverse lookup zones are said to be in this namespace, inaddress.arpa, or in-addr arpa, but everyone calls it inaddress arpa. This is the name the zone actually starts with. Now we'll see those in the interface, but those are the two classifications. Now we want to look at the different types of zones we can create within each forward and reverse lookup. There are 4 types of zones we can create. One is a primary zone. A primary zone is authoritative for a portion of DNS namespace, and it's where all your resource records are created. A primary zone goes hand in hand with a secondary zone. A secondary zone is actually a read-only copy of a primary. Now, these are not extremely common, but the benefit would be I have one zone, a primary zone, I create all my records in. Then if I have a branch office, I can put a secondary zone in the branch office. It's going to have a copy of all the records in a read-only format. They just get transferred to your DNS server in your branch office. We also have a stub zone. A stub zone contains only records required to locate and communicate with name servers. Now, name servers are just DNS servers. So in this type of zone, the only thing you actually have would be records for other DNS servers. Now, we'll put this in a graphic, so it'll be very clear in just a moment as to when you would use which one. The most common type of zone, Active Directory Integrated. An Active Directory Integrated zone has a few requirements. One, can only reside on a domain controller. So if you are not a domain controller, you cannot host an Active Directory Integrated zone. It actually replicates with Active Directory. The same way a user account would replicate, this zone would replicate all the records in it. Now, when you think of a zone, regardless of the type, think of it as a folder. And in that folder, you're going to have all your records. These 4 zone types just determine what's stored in the zone, like what types of records, and how it actually moves around and is accessible from other locations. Now, let's look at some different layouts so we can see when you would have primary, secondary versus stub versus Active Directory Integrated.